Hi, everyone, and welcome to Founder Friday, where we sit down with some of the most innovative founders in the Microsoft for Startups ecosystem and uncover their lessons, their journeys, and big ideas shaping the future. I'm Heena Purohit, the Director of AI Startups here at Microsoft, and I am thrilled to be joined by Steve Aberle, the founder and CEO of Rohirrim. And this is a disruptive company in the Gen AI space, folks.
Mhm.
And they're working with some of the biggest governments and enterprises to use Gen AI to transform some of the most painful parts of their business operations, proposals, and procurements. Steve, welcome to Founder Friday. We're thrilled to have you.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Heena. I couldn't be more excited to be here with Microsoft for Startups. We've had such a fantastic partnership dating all the way back to 2020, long before language models kind of became mainstream, and the ChatGPT craze hadn't quite hit yet. So it's a pleasure to be here. I've been waiting for this, so I'm ready.
Likewise. And Steve, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how that led to you founding Rohirrim?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things, and it's important to note what Rohirrim is up to, first of all, just to kind of set the stage. But we are on a mission to rewrite the architecture of modern acquisitions from both the buyer and seller side. There's always two sides of the coin and kind of two sides of the equation when you're dealing with procurement. It's the seller side, the defense industrial base, everyone that works with the government selling technology and services. And then, of course, it's the government. There were two key things that kind of happened in my background and in my past. So just by way of background, I'm an NLP researcher. I'm an applied AI engineer and began working on transformers long ago, 2016, 2015, 2017, right around there. When language models didn't even exist, they were kind of called transformers. So I was around when they were first being ideated and first being created. And so one of the two events was when we made the breakthrough with transformers and the realization that we could stop trying to teach computers language. Stop trying to teach computers words when we found out that we could turn words into mathematical representations called vectors, and computers had a much better chance at understanding it. That gave rise to modern language models and transformers. And when I was there at the beginning, it was like walking through a door 25 years into the future. I was shocked at the advancements that were being made in the world of transformers. And as soon as I saw them, as soon as those started to become real in 2017, 2018, at some of the early foundational labs, everyone thought I was kind of a little odd and kind of out of place, because the first thing I could think of, the only thing I could think of that consumed my thoughts, were if we could find a way to apply this technology to the world of procurement and acquisition, it would be the largest transformation that this world would see in our lifetimes. If you think about acquisition and procurement, probably the most significant advancement to that entire world is probably the advent of DocuSign, and just being able to sign something digitally. Not too much has changed in the last 40 years. It's still so paperwork heavy, so manual process and workflow heavy. And so that was number one. Number two was I came from the National Laboratories. So I ran AI at the Los Alamos National Laboratories for the weapons program on a project called Titan. And that sounds like a fantastic job, but 90% of my day was probably spent in the world of grants and acquisitions and procurement. It's the higher you go up, the more your day gets subsumed with those kinds of tasks. And there was a large government proposal effort that I was working on just dozens of people involved. It was a $2 billion deal. The number of nights and weekends we were working on this was just incredible. There was a Saturday night that happened to be my daughter's fourth birthday. It was we were going to have a party on Saturday afternoon, and it was going to start at 2 p.m. And there was a call for this large, $2 billion effort. There were 45 people on that call. It was a Saturday, and I remember telling my wife, "It's going to be okay. It only goes from 10 a.m. until noon." And that call, long story short, that call ended up going until 11 p.m. I missed my daughter's birthday. I was just distraught, and I knew there had to be a better way to approach this. And language models, trusted language models, if you could find a way to break through hallucinations, if you could do this in a trusted and governed way, because you're dealing with huge amounts of money and very serious programs and weapons acquisitions, that I knew that should be my mission in life. And that gave rise to the company Rohirrim. It's a long story, sorry, Heena, but I just wanted to set that background.
No, that was awesome, especially because you've been an AI native, you saw the technology evolve, and at the same time, you experienced the pain firsthand, and you wanted to solve it. And you also have experience with how, with understanding these environments. And you mentioned the word trusted language models,
Yeah.
but it's also about the entire solution, which is beyond just the model. So I'm curious, how did you think about things like trust, security, privacy, human in the loop, and like how did you build that on day one onward?
Yeah, you have to. So number one, the first companies, the first organizations that we were working with were just massive defense industrial based companies that are building weapon systems. So you have to think about security. Number one, are they going to take every single unstructured document that they have and ship them off somewhere, off prem? The answer is no. So you have to find environments, you have to find architectures, and you have to think about that at the very beginning, which led us to Azure and this partnership here, and all the years that we've been working with Azure. The ability to govern and secure environments, Entra ID, the language models that are secured in different environments that you have access to in Azure were important pieces of our architecture. The second thing is, when we were first developing these language models, they were very different, long ago. We were, we were amazed when we could get it to predict like a sentence or two out. But this text is kind of, when we were first generating it, it's like, where does this text come from? It's coming out of nowhere. There's no way to attribute it anywhere. And how do you connect it to internal documents? And so there are core problems that you have to work on. And if you're going to be a very good language model or AI native company, it's not necessarily you have to be very good at language models. There's two things you have to be very good at. The first one is a process with unstructured data called ETL, extract, transform, and load. Just for any other startups that are watching, it is all about the data. It's not about the language models. How do you connect to large enterprises that have terabytes of data, unstructured data? How do you structure that? How do you normalize it? How do you make it available for context engineering and prompt engineering? And so the unstructured data piece is very important. The second piece is the orchestration of workflows that are very specific to user pain points. You have the ability to chat with language models. I think that's great, but you have to pay such close attention to what are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the workflows? What is the user trying to get at every day? And where can language models come in and help? And that is a deep process that you must undertake with the customer, the users. You must be deeply in love with them. You must be deeply integrated with them to make progress on early days in a startup.
And I think that's a perfect segue into one of the questions that's top of mind for AI founders, especially the ones starting companies today, is defensibility.
Oh, the
Like,
moat. Everybody wants to talk about moats. Let's talk about it. All right.
exactly. So I'm curious how you thought about it, both back when you were starting out and then today in this world, which is even more
Good
competitive than
question. So,
before.
so we break it down into three things. The first thing, real quick, is security, because we talked about that a little bit. We deploy behind firewalls. We deploy as a platform, so we don't necessarily always get to take advantage of software as a service type technology. But we deploy behind firewalls and VPCs. This is very difficult. This is a tough way to deploy your system. But if you're working with enterprises, it's absolutely required. It's careful, pay attention engineering when you're working with their network protocols, their firewalls, and deploying behind any large enterprise that deals with regulated data. So number one, that is a huge part of what our mode is. And if you do that, then you have to support it. And that's the second thing. And so your customer success element, run by Andrew Schoaf here, who is just a brilliant leader. When you deploy your technology to maybe not just a handful of users, but let's say what happens when you have 10,000, 30,000 users behind a firewall, you must be able to have a customer success element that can support that technology, can train that technology, and get users to understand how generative AI can really impact their specific workflows. And then, of course, there's the data aspect. Again, I said this before, but I can't stress it enough. It really is about the data. How can you deduplicate 5 terabytes of data? Because you're connecting to SharePoint, you're connecting to OneDrive, you've got network drives all over. A huge amount of this duplicative data. When was it created? How was it created? Why was it created? And get that all written down into a network graph so it can be accessed via context engineering. The moat is data. The mode is not the models. It's very easy to work with models. Like I said, Microsoft and Azure make it, you don't need a ton of applied AI engineers running around. They make it so easy to work with models. But if you don't have data engineers that can understand the data at an in-depth and detailed level, your moat will quickly evaporate.
Yes, and that really also ties to the domain expertise that you're bringing.
Right.
So the fact that y'all have that is really an incredible mode. I'm also curious about your journey from building a product to building an entire platform,
Right.
because you started in the proposal space and then you expanded to procurement and then you're now in the data intelligence side as well. Could you walk us through how you thought about like going broad versus just focusing on the core areas?
Yeah, it starts with a vision. So especially if you're a founder and you're here on the Friday Startup Founders Day here, and you're just kind of listening to this, what is the world that you're trying to change, and what is your vision? And then any plan that you have never survives first contact. Being able to stay loose and kind of work with all the things that disrupt whatever your plan and vision is. But you've got to have a vision. And for us, it began with a simple realization that procurement and acquisition really is about those two sides. It's a massive ecosystem. And how do we create a flywheel? And how do we understand what's important to both sides? And it began first with, all right, let's isolate a single user group, a single persona on the commercial side, which happen to be proposal writers, and what are their problems day in and day out, and then just get focused on that, build solutions alongside with them that take what could be, a 9-day process and turn it into 9 minutes. And you can do that, just those things one at a time, and deploy those things out small, one at a time. And then as your company grows, then so does your product. So does the company growth enables what you want to do along that much larger vision. And so we've got some important news, some big news coming out in a couple weeks as it relates to this and just kind of the natural expression of how Rohirrim has grown and what we call a unified acquisition platform. But when you're dealing with data, when you're dealing with use cases, when you're dealing with workflows, and you're dealing with multiple sides of, buyer and seller, and you have that vision, and that kind of allows you to kind of head more into the world of a platform and grow into that platform play. And that's what we've done here at Rohirrim.
Absolutely. We will stay tuned for the upcoming announcement. And I also want to switch to, Steve, you're in our Pegasus program. So you mentioned about how you've built natively on Azure and all your experiences there. I'm also curious, how has partnering with Microsoft for startups helped you accelerate your growth?
Well, Heena, I don't know if you know this or not, but Microsoft is kind of a large company. So the number of elements, the number of offices that we work with, and I could even name, Florian Meyer at our account executive, Christian Montecito up at the Azure OpenAI, Bethany Cords, yourself, everyone. And then, not even that, it's just worldwide divisions where we're working with Azure in Australia, for these much larger implementations at governments. Here's what I'll tell founders. You have to be humble enough to realize you cannot do all of this alone. You cannot grow alone. You need allies, and you need teammates, and you need team members. And the best way I can describe Pegasus is an ally, just a tremendous ally in the journey that can make introductions, that can find the most efficient path for you, because as a founder, that's exactly what you're trying to do, is find the most efficient path to the right person to talk to, the right office to talk to, the right technical support, so you can get your system up off the ground. And that to me is really our Pegasus experience, is an ally and a partner that can work with, how many people work at Microsoft, Heena? Is what, like 200,000 people? It's just massive. And being able to take advantage of all of that was important to us to become part of the Pegasus program.
That's awesome. We know B2B sales is hard, and we just want to help you through that journey.
Right.
So,
and if you're trying to deal with enterprises, there's no better program to be involved with. Our ICP, which is Ideal Customer Profile, very large enterprises, the Fortune 250, the very large governments. And again, you need an ally, and there's no better program than Pegasus.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball here and ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. This is going to be fun.
Okay, so I know you touched on the defensibility, but I'm curious, what is your advice for other founders to help them as they think through defensibility to make sure they're not building another GPT wrapper?
Yeah, that's right. So vision, number one, have a vision, understand your users. And like I said at the beginning of this call, love them, love your users deeply. And I'm a founder. There's any number of things I could do all day long, but I spend 50 or 60% of my time just let's hang out. Let me watch you as you use the system. Let's talk to your users. Be absolutely in love with your users. And if you have that mindset, a lot of things are going to take care of themselves for you.
Absolutely. Then the next one would be, what is one lesson that you would share with other founders that want to sell to other regulated industries? Because you're in some of the most sensitive workloads at some of the biggest governments in the world.
Yeah, well, so obviously the security piece is important, but one of the biggest lessons just from myself is the obstacle is the way. I don't know if you've ever heard that. There's actually a book.
The Ryan Holiday.
Yes, the Ryan Holiday. I love that book. I've read it so many times. When you're dealing with large enterprises and there's so much process and there's so many people that you have to work with, you must find oblique angles to move beyond barriers that seem absolutely insurmountable. you have to look at this in almost 3 dimensions. It's not the only way to go is through left, right, up, down, find an oblique angle. When you're working with very large enterprises, when you're working with very large governments, you must be resilient. You must, everything that you do is the most important thing that you're going to do that day. And there are any number of obstacles that seem insurmountable, but they're not. If you think of them 3-dimensionally, the obstacle is the way. And I talk about that a lot with my team.
Love that. Okay, final one. So the AI world is moving so fast. Mm-hmm. What is one technology trend you're really excited about?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I both love and hate the word agents. And I think the word agents are
not the only one.
I know that the word is misused a little bit in marketing, but what I'll tell you from an applied AI engineer or as a software engineer, right, by background, I've never had the ability to have 2 pieces of code communicate with each other in natural language, and how that can affect the workflows that you build and the complex workflows. We have an agent that we built here at Rohirrim that we call an arbiter agent. And this arbiter agent is watching and keeping track of what happens with a user as they interact with different other agents in the platform and different orchestration workflows. And an arbiter keeps things on track, and are they moving in the right direction? And the way that they're communicating with each other is just via natural language. And it's just astounding to me, even though I've been in this world for such a long time. But the idea of agents, the idea of organizational agents, and I'll tell you what I'm really excited about. Agents work on a one-to-one basis right now. So, agents are maybe interacting with a user or one specific workflow. But what happens when you have organizational agents and they can work on a one-to-many basis now? It's such early innings, Heena, and every week something new comes by that just shocks me to my core in terms of how fast this technology is moving. It is a tsunami, but agents will play an important role in the next couple of years. And of course, model context protocols and all the different ways that they communicate will have a massive impact on organizations and your customers. So pay attention to it.
Sounds great. Well, Steve, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all the wisdom bombs you've dropped here. I learned so much, and really, really appreciate the tactical insights for our other founders that are listening in today. So thank you once again. Is there any last, where can people follow you? Any other call to action you want to share with folks?
I know our whole company is such quiet professionals, but we do a little bit on LinkedIn. Catch me on LinkedIn. And I'm there at Steven Aberle, and of course, find Rohirrim. And if you have large enterprise use case problems when you're dealing with acquisitions and you're finding yourself working on the nights and weekends, and you know that there must be a better way, I'm glad you're listening, because you've found us. You've found Rohirrim, and just get in touch with us. We can make your life better.
Love it. Thank you, Steve. And then also follow the Rohirrim page so you can stay updated on the upcoming announcement. I got a sneak preview at that, and it is going to be big, and I am excited.
Thank you all. Heena, thank you so much.
Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next Friday.